Alrighty, folks. Here we are. It is now all of a sudden almost late October. It's the 21st day I'm recording this. Yeah, so we'll go ahead. It's been a little bit longer than I would have liked since we've talked on a few of the Oscar things, but one of the things I have to say, we'll cover some stuff today as far as what's happened in the last roughly month since we've talked about the race. We'll talk about, are there any significant changes? Briefly, we'll recap a little bit of what happened at the New York Film Festival, at least, a couple of the screenings and stuff, because I think there was only like one or two brand new ones that premiered at New York. Probably the big one being Is This Thing On, the Bradley Cooper one. But otherwise, yeah, those a few things we'll talk about. I have seen a couple of movies that are going to be in the hunt for some Academy attention. And yeah, I think the big thing for me is just probably the biggest headline is Best Picture already over? Like, do we already know who's going to win Best Picture? And my answer is, I think we do. I think we do. Now I've caught on. Now I've seen the film and everything. One battle after another is our Best Picture winner. That's what I'm saying right now. This just after seeing the movie and the lead up to seeing the movie and everything, I had heard, some things here and there, like, oh, I heard this little thing about Spielberg had seen it 3 times, in the first week or whatever, and I'm like, okay, all right. And then I, heard this, and it's like all the buzz around it right as the movie was opening and right after the movie opened, it just kind of dawned on me. I'm like, wow, we are right where we were almost 2 years ago when we said Christopher Nolan is overdue, Christopher Nolan is overdue. How about Paul Thomas Anderson being overdue? He absolutely is on that level of a filmmaker, someone who's been nominated multiple times. Just remembering back to his last movie, Licorice Pizza, don't forget, the only nominations that one received were things that Paul Thomas Anderson himself did, writing the script, directing the film, and producing the film. And it got shut out in all the other categories that it could have potentially ended up in, like Cooper Supporting Actor, Elena Heim maybe had a little bit of buzz about her for Best Actress. The tech categories, it had a little bit of a shot in some of those tech categories. Didn't end up happening, of course, but it's like anything Paul Thomas Anderson did got nominated for that film for the most part, and everything. So that, I just look at him like, yeah, it's an overdue factor, I think, for him that's really gonna push this thing. It kind of feels, I don't know, it's really early to say this, but it kind of feels undeniable at this point. It's like we look across the board, it's like, well, what else can beat it? It's like, well, I think the only other one that really can at this point that will have as strong a narrative is probably Sinners, but even then, that one came out, much earlier in the year. I was a little worried about naming One Battle After Another like an early front, big front runner because it is a September release. Traditionally, September releases are kind of iffy, and everything. But then again, I looked at it and I'm like, well, Oppenheimer was a July release. The year before, Everything Everywhere All at Once was like a March release? It was March or April when it went wide from A24. It's like, what are we thinking? It's like, of course. Yeah, so that was kind of silly on me. But then again, it's like, you never know. You never know early on. It's hard to go out there day one in September and be like, I know for sure that this movie is winning Best Picture. Now, we had great feelings about Oppenheimer that year. And, there's other years where it's like, okay, it feels like, like La La Land. We had great feelings about La La Land out the gate. Didn't quite end up happening. Some people look at like 2007, like No Country for Old Men. That felt like an undeniable one. That felt like one where it's like the Coen brothers, they were overdue. They'd been nominated a few times. Fargo was kind of their breakout film, and then since then they kind of went along, got a couple things nominated. They had some commercial flops, and then here comes No Country for Old Men, just a solid movie that everyone liked, and yeah, it was kind of an undeniable film, even if it wasn't like a nominated every last place it possibly could have been, kind of film. It still ended up doing very, very well at the Oscars and everything. And coincidentally, who had their breakout film that year? but Paul Thomas Anderson and There Will Be Blood, which was, obviously PTA had had some attention before, like Boogie Nights, Magnolia, both getting their fair share of nominations in the 90s. And then, The Year of No Country, There Will Be Blood ended up doing, I think still to this day it is, I think, the most nominated film by PTA. And I think One Battle After Another has a real shot to even outperform that one and outshine that one. So I think with this case, yes, I think One Battle After Another, it's my new front runner for Best Picture, for Best Director, for Best Adapted Screenplay. I think otherwise, I'm trying to think anywhere else I've absolutely 100% confident it can win. In the top categories, no. But is it likely to be nominated in several of those other top categories? I think so. Yeah, I would say DiCaprio stands a really good shot at a nomination. Teyana Taylor, I think, stands a pretty good shot at getting nominated. Might not win. Some people, I think, are a little over-projecting there early, but we'll see. She could catch a big wave of momentum, and typically, again, your Best Picture winner tends to carry along an acting win. Sometimes it is in the supporting categories, so that could happen. I'd even say Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro both have a really good shot at getting nominated. And actually, when we get to that one, let me go into that one here really briefly, because I just think one thing I really have to say here about that, it just feels, and I said it very early. I said I was more convinced that it was going to be Del Toro over Sean Penn. But I don't know. It was kind of like a thing where it's I think just seeing the trailers and stuff. Now having seen the film, it's oh yeah, I can totally see both actors getting nominated. But in particular, Del Toro, do not be shocked when we get to Oscar nominations morning in about roughly 3 months or a little under 3 months, and we only see Del Toro nominated. Here's why. Scene Stealer, previous winner, in a category that feels not totally, up for grabs, but it feels there's maybe one or two sure things here, but otherwise it's kind of open. And we could see anywhere from 5 to 6 to 7 nominees outside of, one or two guaranteed nominees, we would say at this rate. So I would say do not be shocked in the slightest if we see Del Toro actually end up being the sole nominee in that category for the film. But we'll get to it all in good time. Let me just recap really quick my feelings on the film, because I've very famously stated in the past, you can go back years and years, I've said I run very hot and very cold with PTA. To this day, I would say the two films of his that I've really enjoyed and I think are peak, the absolute, best he's done. There Will Be Blood is definitely one of them. The other one is Punch Drunk Love. I've not seen every last film he's done, but those two are the films that's if they're on, I'll watch them, however late we're into it, all the way to the ending. And then there's other films of his like Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Licorice Pizza. They're films where it's there's good stuff in it, but there's some stuff in it that I get really bored with, or things that I like Boogie Nights. I feel like that film just completely runs out of energy once we get past roughly the halfway point. Magnolia, once we get past that 2-hour mark, that film goes from epic masterpiece to what the hell are we doing? And it has, without spoiling it, it has one of the most head-scratching endings you'll see in a movie, in my personal opinion. I definitely would not have done it the way he did it, but he is who he is. So, yeah, and then Licorice Pizza, I remember, liking it and being yeah, there's good parts in it. But I wasn't, thoroughly all the way through saying, this is easily one of the best films of the year, anything like that. Or even Phantom Thread, another one he did, where it's yeah, I said I liked parts of it, but at the end of the day, I didn't really, love it. And I didn't really, I picked up on, I guess, the theme of just, marriage is sometimes about, hurting each other and stuff. Sometimes if it even comes down to almost physically doing it. In the case of, what's her name? Vicky Creeps trying to poison Daniel Day-Lewis. Okay, minor spoiler there, I guess, for that film. But, I guess, but it's outside of that, I'm I didn't really think it was, I think it was a little overrated in my opinion, as far as is it one that should be up for director, should be up for picture, and all that. But yeah, Leslie Manville was really good in it. I was glad she was nominated. But anyways, yeah, I think this one though, One Battle After Another, I think if it's not among those two films, There Will Be Blood and Punch Drunk Love, it's extremely close. It's really, really close. And it's one of those that, yeah, it was one of those things that's very funny. I walked out of the theater. I was coincidentally walking behind some guys. They were probably in their 20s or so, maybe late, maybe like 18, 19 years old. It looked like they were almost college age kids. And they were, one of them, I guess they knew enough about film because they knew who the director was and they knew at least some of the behind the scenes of it. But one of it had mentioned, they said the first about 15, 20 minutes, they said were awful. And after that, it got better and better and everything. In my opinion, this is a film that does get better as it goes. I don't think the beginning is like trash or anything. But it's got a very weird opening where, there's a couple things where I'm like, okay, I'm like, how is this like 96, 97%? And then it's like on Rotten Tomatoes. Not to say that that's, again, the end-all, be-all. But I was like, okay, I'm feeling like, okay, I think more people would have been a little weirded out by how the film opens. And then, yeah, once we get kind of past that and the nature of the story kind of takes over and we get past that first 30, 35 minutes or so and the, traditional, or I shouldn't say traditional, but the story begins where, most of it takes place the rest of the way and everything. Then it got to the point where I'm like, yeah, this is fantastic. This is just really entertaining, really, really great filmmaking. And yeah, PTA directed the hell out of this too. I mean, especially when we get to some of the stuff in the third act, like the camera choice and some of the stuff. I mean, the last set piece especially. That's going to go down as like one of the greatest last set pieces in recent film history. I mean, just absolutely phenomenal job there with everything involved, from the acting to the choreography, the camera work, the editing. Everything was really great. And I feel like, maybe the opening, it's not as strong, but it has its moments for sure. And I still find myself saying, and I kind of said it afterwards, I'm like, I can understand why people would want to go back and see this again. And for myself, I mean, it's not like an overly short film. It's almost 2 hours, 45 minutes. I mean, I don't know if I would say, like, absolutely let me fork over, however much to pay for another ticket for it. But I would absolutely not be opposed to seeing this in the theater again. I thought it was very good. But yeah, DiCaprio, DiCaprio gets some of his moments are really great as far as comedic stuff. He's very much the comic relief of the film, and he's a much needed comic relief, especially when you dig down and you kind of see what the film is about. It's not a film that's very allegorical. It's very literal with a lot of its stuff, which I think is it's a welcome turn. I know some people are like, leave it a little more muddled. Let us connect the dots as an audience and stuff. But I think the filmmaking and everything it's doing and the messages it's portraying and everything, it's like it's one that I think does work better if you are more straightforward and you're not quite as up in the air, and you're not so much saying like, is this a political movie, and stuff like that, or is this politically trying to say this, that, or the other thing about a certain body, or who's running the White House right now, or what organizations are running around doing things that we like or don't like, and so on and so forth. So I know there will be some people for sure in the Academy that don't agree with the politics of the movie. There's going to be some people, probably more right-leaning in their personal politics that won't enjoy every last thing that the film has or the message that the film has in certain spots. But undeniably, though, again, there is some great filmmaking here, regardless of what your political background is. So, DiCaprio's really good in it. Again, Del Toro steals every scene he's in. Every scene he's in, when there's a certain part of the movie where it feels like, okay, he's out, he's done. It feels like that's the last scene he's in. And when he comes back, it's in the trailer, so it's not a huge, several of the clips of him after he comes back and everything are in the trailer, so it's not a giveaway there. It is such a smile and such a warm feeling that does come over the audience when he comes back. He steals every scene he's in. He's fantastic. I thought he's always been a great actor. I kind of when we got to like films like Sicario and some of his performances after that, Sicario especially just really reminded me just how good he was, because I hadn't seen him, not that I can recall at least, not in a lot of other movies between that and some of his earlier works. But yeah, he is very, very good in this. And Sean Penn, I think, man, he's the villain of the movie, and he is like 100% the villain of the movie. Like that's 100% his role. And what's really, really interesting about the performance and the character, he's not a guy that has all these huge monologues. He's not a guy who's going to, speechify and say all this stuff. He's a guy that's just an intimidating force just by standing there and by that walk, that's very specific walk that he has in the movie. It's like he leaves an impression just immediately, and he doesn't need to have, 3 pages worth of dialogue to convey the message that he wants. In particular, I remember there's one scene in the third act when he speaks to one character that kind of, in 1 or 2 sentences basically explains why he's doing what he's doing through a majority of the film. And it's not a moment where he needs to sit down and give this, soliloquy to the person that he's talking to. He just needs to say, 7, 8, 9 total words across 2 sentences, and you know exactly what he's doing. It, in his mind, he has justified exactly, every last move he's done has been justified, and all that. And in a way, there's a scary factor to that, and I think it's one of those things where that performance can maybe off the jump, it's not going to totally knock you off your feet and be like, what a tremendous performance. Maybe not at first. The more you think about it, and the more you kind of picture him, and you see him with that distinct walk and with that hairdo and everything, it does stick with you, and it really, I think, is a performance that does improve with age, and I'm sure with rewatches as well. So he's, I wouldn't call it like the absolute 100% best performance of Sean Penn. You look at Milk, or especially something like Mystic River for me, was like, yeah, he's fantastic in all those. Or even Dead Man Walking. Go back and see Dead Man Walking. He was amazing in that. Absolutely amazing in that. And then as far as Tiana Taylor goes, yeah, she's not in the movie extremely long. I guess I shouldn't say exactly where, but it's a relatively early spot in the movie when she leaves. And it's very reminiscent of some of my concerns with like Mahershala Ali back in 2016. Why I was a little shaky on him winning is because the screen time is really not extremely large. And that's not to say that when she is on screen and when her character is present in the film, it's not to say that she's like barely in it or anything. No, she's there, and she's consistent throughout her present part of the movie and everything. It's just that, once she's gone, it's not like a lot of opportunities for her to come back and make another impression later on in the film. So I can see some voters, especially if it's a group of voters that, are not going to be really in favor of the film. They're just not going to love the messages early and stuff. Even some of the stuff that she does as a character, there might be some people that have problems with what she does and everything. Maybe that's why, I'm not really, again, saying on a slam dunk that she's guaranteed to win, but I think she can still get nominated, absolutely. And in particular, she's one of those characters, too, that, yeah, she has some of those moments where it's like maybe you disagree with what she's doing and everything, and then there comes a moment with her character where she goes through a phase that was really, it really did show, her acting ability and her level of performance there. Because she goes from one extreme to a pretty different extreme. And really shows some depth and some real levels there as far as her capabilities and stuff as an actress. So I thought, yeah, that part especially really made me like gravitate to her as like, oh, okay, yeah, she is definitely someone who can walk away with a nomination for the film, at least a nomination. Yeah. It's the other one. Yeah, script was fantastic. PTA knows really has a really nice flavor for, okay, this works as more dramatic flair. This is where we need to go a little more comedic. When this character blows up, the DiCaprio character kind of blows up in a couple sequences at people on the phone and stuff. He knows exactly in the editing, like how long to hold the shots and when to cut away and when to, go back to more serious material and stuff, and all that. And in particular, I will say this: there's a sequence toward the tail end of the film. I won't give away who's in it, who says what, but it has some of the funniest dialogue I have heard in a while. Like in particular, there's we'll just say it's a character who has been caught in a lie and is now trying to give a BS excuse, a bullshit excuse for like what happened and everything. Oh my god, it is hysterically funny. I almost completely cracked up in the theater. I was laughing so hard. It was just wonderful. So I was like, yeah, hand this thing the prize for script while we're at it. Yeah, I thought the script was just brilliant. Yeah, PTA. I've always thought PTA has been an excellent writer. And I think he has definitely matured as a director as well, and he's just gotten better and better and better at his craft, directing over the years and stuff. Particularly, There Will Be Blood had some very, very great moments in it, some great, very memorable shots. The whole last, 10, 15 minutes of that movie, the one, the setting, the I Drink Your Milkshake scene, just every part of how that was directed and staged and put together. God, yeah, that's one. I have not seen that film in some years. I need to go back and rewatch that whole thing because watching this, it kind of made me think back to that film and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I do need to sit down and watch that one again. It was so great. But anyways, yeah, I mean, otherwise, let me think what else I have to talk about. The Chase Infinity character was really good. I liked her a lot. You get a lot of sympathy out of her character and everything, and I think she does a really great job. The only thing I have maybe some minor quibbles with it. In particular, there's one character, the Regina Hall. God, I can't remember who. It's not Regina King. It's Regina Hall. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Regina Hall, who's in the movie, not Regina King. There's a couple things with her character that kind of get just left up in the air. There's not really like a great conclusion with her character. If you've seen movies before, there's a couple things that are a little telegraphed. In particular, there's one sequence toward the end. It involves that scene I was talking about that I laughed really hard at. There's one particular part of that scene where, the way it's shot, the choreography of the scene, everything, you kind of know what's happening. You kind of know what's going to happen next. Yeah, so there's that. And there's also, in the third act, there's one particular character that gets brought in. And almost immediately, the way that they start reacting to what Sean Penn is asking of them, you can really start easily connecting the dots to what this character is going to end up doing. And when he does it, it's no surprise at all. Yeah. I mean, otherwise, yeah. I mean, again, I didn't absolutely 100% love the first half hour, 35 minutes, the setup of the movie. To get us to the rest of it, because I think the majority of the movie, takes place over the course of roughly a day or so. That stuff, I think, again, all works really, really well. And yeah, even though it is set in basically modern day, the way it's shot, the way the pacing goes, the feel of it, it does feel like one of those angry 70s movies, very much in the style of a Sidney Lumet. Like you see shades of Dog Day Afternoon. You see shades of Network in here. Amongst some other, 70s films like that, some kind of, at the time, cutting edge films and everything. You very much see some of the shades of that era in this movie. And yeah, of course, as a film buff, I fucking love seeing stuff like that. And no surprise, PTA loves to set some of his stuff in the 70s and everything, or earlier, sometimes a little later. And I think he always does a great job with getting the feel of the film down, and some nods if that's what he's going for, which he definitely was with this. So yeah, gosh, I don't know what else. So yeah, I think my initial impression was, I was a little bit more, I had a little bit more trouble with some of those problems, especially when we got to a couple things in the third act that I didn't really, there wasn't really any shocks in the third act of the movie or anything. So I was initially like, okay, it's a 9 out of 10, but it's the highest you can get without being a 10 out of 10. And, again, since I've had a little bit of time, it's been almost a full week now since I've seen the film. The more I've thought about it and the more some of those, the Sean Penn performance, the way that thing sticks with you over time and stuff, it does. I think it's going to make me elevate it to a 10 out of 10. It's probably one of the 2 or 3 best films I've seen all year. And yeah, look out everyone else at the Oscars. Because again, I just feel like the momentum wave is really here. PTA, it feels like he's due. This feels like the moment to award him. It's a film that does have some timely elements to it. It feels like it's speaking to where a majority of the Oscar voting base is located. It's set in California. That all helps it and everything. I'm really not seeing any areas where I think this film can fall through. The only thing would be, again, if a movie like Sinners does have the real staying power and it starts beating it at, say, the Golden Globes. It beats it out for SAG, or it beats it out for some of these other precursor awards or something, and it does actually get on a winning track. And I can, by the way, totally see a scenario, too, where Sinners wins Best Picture, but PTA gets director. He gets the adapted screenplay prize. Sinners can win original because that's in its own category. And we can see it, maybe win one of the supporting acting races. We could see it win for maybe one or two below the line categories. But but I think in this case, I would say, it's definitely a movie that is more likely than not, I think, at this rate to keep the momentum up and sail away, and that might be the end of the season. So that's the biggest thing I wanted to talk about here. Other news-wise, and then I'll get to one other review here, and then we'll go into some changes I've made in the top 8 categories. By the way, we will be back sometime next week. We'll get into the early Golden Globes nomination predictions. And then a few weeks later, we'll be into November. By then, I'll give some more thoughts. Like, we'll get into the tech categories finally. I always like to wait until we've gotten some time before we get into the tech categories. And then we'll get into, like, SAG nomination predictions as well in November as well. So, we've got, we'll have a more mapped out plan as far as other videos coming up and everything here. But the other couple of the big things that happened here since then. One thing I do want to bring up really quick: Paul Mescal or Mescal. I've heard both pronunciations through his career and everything. He has been confirmed to be in the supporting acting race. I saw a really nice. I can't remember who did it. Hollywood Reporter or one of those. They had a really nice breakdown where they said, actually looking at the film and looking at the screen time and stuff, Jessie Buckley does have a significant amount more screen time minutes. So I think it was like 40 minutes for him, and she was in it for almost like 60 some minutes or close to that range. So it's like, there is a sizable difference there. Now, that being said, we do sometimes see a sizable margin like that. Like, I've never seen the actual full numbers, but we all know, right, that like Anthony Hopkins for Silence of the Lambs, he was only on screen for reportedly 12 minutes, I think, is famously the quote on that. But nobody really talks about, like, how long was Jodie Foster on screen in that movie. Obviously, it's going to be a significant jump more. And yet, through the movie, Hopkins feels, because, his presence kind of stays with you in the film, he feels like a lead character in the film. And, maybe just on the numbers, yes, Paul Mescal is going to be more supporting just based off the numbers. But having not seen the film yet, I haven't heard any arguments like saying like he absolutely should be lead or anything like that. But and as it turns out too, we kind of mentioned this last time, the way that category is shaping up, you might be better off in the supporting race. It might be a little crowded up there in Best Actor. But anyways. What else do we have to say here? Any other news things here? I think No Other Choice, I think, has been officially slated for a Christmas release, or right around Christmas. I'm trying to think what else here. I don't think we have much else here otherwise. For anything that's like been slated for release or moved out of release or anything. Nothing in that department, I don't think. So real quick, we can talk about the 2025 New York Film Festival. A lot of the films that played there had already opened up otherwise, like Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, excuse me. Our Golden Lion winner from Venice, that played. A House of Dynamite was there. That had played previously. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which is open at the box office. It's doing all right for its limited run so far. That one played. It was just an accident. That played all the way back at and won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. That one, I think, I just opened. I haven't seen the numbers yet, actually. Let me see if they even have them at this rate. For 3 theaters, $68,000 for roughly almost a little over $22,700 per theater, which is I think they're happy with that. I think they'd be happy with that. Let's see what else was there. Jay Kelly was there. The Mastermind was there. No Other Choice. The Secret Agent. Sentimental Value was there. Yeah, so I think that's, yeah, again, almost all of those, if not all those, have played elsewhere. Then we have the surprise, because there's usually a secret or surprise screening. Marty Supreme ended up being the surprise screening there. And evidently, I wasn't aware of this, because right after we heard that was going to be the surprise screening and everything, I looked for reviews. I'm like, okay, well, what's, is it good? Is it bad? And evidently, it's not. There's still, the embargo is still up. So I don't know. I mean, that's, in my personal book, that's not something I love. The fact that they're not letting critics and other various people, talk their heads off about how great the movie is. Okay, maybe this ends up being more of a, one or two categories and yeah, all that. But all the buzz I heard off the screening was Timothée Chalamet does it again. Another big kind of memorable performance playing a real life person, and all that. And yeah, I'm hoping this one is a very different performance than, say, something like Bob Dylan last year with A Complete Unknown. Because these younger actors, when they show, just how different they can be, just how diverse they can be with their acting choices and stuff, yeah, I feel like that's always the better move to play there. Otherwise, the only other one, the closing film, was Is This Thing On? Bradley Cooper's new film. And the reviews on this were actually very, very solid. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, it sounds like everyone was happy with this. Will Arnett, got great reviews. Sounds like Will Arnett is really, really good in it. From the trailers, yeah, he looks like he's delivering a very nice, grounded performance and everything. Yeah, so I think, everything with that looks good. As far as, all that goes, I feel like we had A Star Is Born, which was a big commercial hit. Pretty good critical hit, if not great critical hit. A lot of people liked it. I was okay with it. I didn't love it, but then Bradley Cooper goes more, more hoity-toity and more artsy-fartsy with Maestro, and I did not like Maestro. I was one of the, not few, but I was one of the people early on. I was like, once I finally saw it on Netflix, I'm like, oh, I said, I didn't like this. and I had a lot of complaints about it. And it felt like almost as soon as I started saying that, pretty soon other people, and not that I was obviously the one that said it, but it's like once it became more available, yes, we did see more people like myself kind of come out of the woodwork and say, no, this is not a masterpiece or anything. And it felt like as it went, the momentum just slowed and slowed and slowed and slowed. And it just, by the time we got to Oscar night, it was like, I remember I did not pick it to win makeup, even though it was very heavily favored. And yeah, it ended up going, what was it, 0 for 7, 0 for 8. So yeah. So I feel like with that, I feel like not that, people are still, he's not still paying for the sins of Maestro, if you will. But it's like, I feel like, it's just, I think people are going to have to work back to like being excited for his next film and everything. And yeah, so right now I'm like, okay, well, if it comes out and does really well at the Globes, like it gets, picture, comedy, musical, it gets, 1 or 2 acting races in there in those respective categories, and stuff like that, then okay, maybe it's got a little bit of a shot. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, what else can it get nominated for? It's like, well, at this rate, I think screenplay is an okay bet. I'm not sure if Will Arnett can go all the way for Best Actor, again, especially since it is so crowded. It's going to be hard to dial that thing down to 5. So, if he can make the top 5, and that's incredible at this rate. But we'll see. We'll see if if he makes it into a SAG or something. It's like, okay, maybe this thing, maybe it can roll all the way. But we'll see. Otherwise it's like, I'm not sure what else, because it's, contemporary film. It's not going to be up for a lot of the tech categories the way Maestro was. As far as I know, there's not going to be a lot of music to it, so it's not like it's going to be up for some of the music categories the way that A Star Is Born was. So it doesn't seem like everything I've heard about it is it's not a slam dunk to get like any supporting nominations or anything like that. So I think it's going to be limited in its capacity there. I really don't see this thing busting out of more than, even if it's a really liked film in the Academy and stuff, I don't see it getting more than like 5 nominations at this rate. I mean, I feel like that would be tops, right? If it gets picture, it gets an acting race, screenplay, and then maybe hangs around in 1 or 2 categories we're not suspecting right now. But I'd not say that I think it's going to be, even though the critics are really liking it so far, not that I think it's going to be like a bad film or anything, but yeah. Let's see. Otherwise, our opening film there at New York Film Festival was another one that we had seen before, After the Hunt, which has since opened around the country, and yeah, it's not looking good. It's just, yeah, per theater average was about less than $1,250 a theater. The opening, weekend and stuff, yeah, it was in 6 theaters, average about 20, if I'm reading right, just under 26.5 a theater, which is, yeah, that's pretty good result. But yeah, critics are not really loving it. Audiences have not been flocking to go see it. At this rate, yeah, it just feels like a lot of the momentum of that film is just completely out. And once it got very divisive reviews out of Venice and out of because it was at Telluride as well, as I recall, but maybe not. Yeah, once the divisive reviews really came in, it just became just some people liked it, some people really did not like it. Yeah, again, I always say you want to be really beloved or really hated if you're going for any one specific category at the Oscars, or multiple. You want to be really liked if you're going for multiple, but if you're divisive, that's no bueno. That's no good. All right. So at this rate, yeah, I've got. I think I've got a pretty much the same list for a lot of these categories. We'll go into maybe one or two changes I have made, but for Best Picture, One Battle After Another has taken over for my front spot. Oh, sorry. One more thing, really quick before we get to this. Let me talk about The Smashing Machine. I did see that one. Yeah, and this one, I'll be dead honest. MMA is not my thing. Boxing, real life boxing, following who the boxing people are, not my thing. I'll enjoy watching some boxing movies once in a while. Creed and the Rocky movies and all that. And like, yeah, I can enjoy those. But yeah, so I did not. I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but I went into this movie thinking this was a biopic about a boxer who had died in the 90s. I mean, I have no shame. I will absolutely admit that. I will absolutely admit that I was convinced this movie's going to end, especially the way that the opening title comes up, title card, I should say, that says the events of this film take place between 1997 and 2000. I'm like, I wonder what happened in 2000, why we don't see this character after that. It was written on the wall. It's like, this is a biopic about a guy who died in the ring or something. I was like, yeah, I don't know. And the fact that it's like, Dwayne Johnson had talked so highly about the real life person and everything, I had no idea. I didn't know jack shit about this world. So of course, the way it's set up, I'm kind of waiting for that shoe to drop. It's like, okay, well, what's going to happen, and all. And then, yeah, then the rest of the story goes, and you learn later on. It's like, oh yeah, and you realize it's about a guy who's still very much alive and well. So Mark Kerr, my apologies for having that false presumption going into the movie, but Smashing Machine, it's okay. It's okay. It's not like a terrific movie. It's not one that I highly recommend. If you're a big MMA person, you're especially into the history of MMA, then yeah, this is going to be right up your alley. You're really going to have a phenomenal time with this. But for myself, I'm kind of more there, and watching it more for the performances and stuff. And I just really could not really get into the story much. The MMA fighting sequences, the stuff in the ring, and all that, it's pretty brief, which is fine. I think the story it's trying to tell is it's less about the actual fights and more about the person, the fighter, which I respect. And a lot of the greatest of the boxing movies and other fighting style movies, they do that. So I understand exactly why where Safdie, the director, is coming from and all that, taking that approach. That being said, yeah, I do feel like, especially if like myself, very little, if next to nothing about MMA coming into this movie, it's not really going to help you. It's not really going to hold your hand and tell you more about all the different styles. It'll name some of the different styles. It'll show some of the training techniques. It'll show some of the training montages and stuff. But you don't get like a big hands-on, very tutorial-based thing of, this is what an MMA fight can be. There's one sequence actually, relatively toward the beginning where they say this is no longer allowed in MMA at this tournament, at a specific tournament they're at. Yeah, and I feel like it would have been nice too if the film, again, at least for my taste, I think I would have preferred it to be a little bit more, it doesn't have to go like super in depth with like exactly what it is, but yeah, if it had gotten a little inside baseball as far as making you feel smart about the subject and stuff, I feel like, yeah, then we would have really gotten something that could have really lifted off. I always you can compare it this way. It's like a movie like The Social Network. You can go into that movie knowing next to nothing about coding and computer programming and nowadays social media in general, and you come out of that movie feeling smarter. You feel like you've learned something. You feel like you know the world that these people work in, day in and day out with programmers and coders and all that. With this movie, I feel like I didn't really know I didn't come out of it saying, like, I know exactly what an MMA fighter does day in, day out, and all that stuff. I don't think it was nearly as successful in that way. That being said, performances, though, are good. I mean, Dwayne Johnson does show, he is capable of a deeper performance than just playing a bad guy in an action film or an action hero. He does show, some depth there and some layers and everything, and in particular, there's one really great sequence where he's, I guess it's a mild spoiler because I don't think it's heavy in the advertising and stuff, but he is a character that goes through an opioid addiction at a couple points in the movie. And there's one spot where we kind of see like exactly what that does to him and how he operates under that and stuff. And that sequence was very illuminating, and I feel like that was one of the spots that the movie kind of covered very well, as far as going into a specific topic and all that. I felt like that part was really good. Otherwise, I think this movie does, even though it's right at 2 hours or maybe it's slightly over 2 hours, I feel like there's a lot of meat left on the bone here. Like there's one particular sequence where the Kerr character is kind of reflecting on the being out of the boxing, or I shouldn't say boxing ring, but out of the MMA ring for a long time, and he goes to a kind of a fair or something, carnival or whatever, what have you, a rodeo type deal. And he watches with his girlfriend kind of a demolition derby type thing. And the movie kind of reflects on that, and he's kind of reflecting on it, and he's like, wow, looking at the hits and stuff and thinking about how he takes hits in the ring. And yet that never really materializes into anything. We don't really see him be reluctant to go back into the ring. And yet, from the way that he's watching it, he does, the way it's shot and the way it's put together, the way the music comes in, it looks like it's trying to make you feel like make it look like he is thinking about, do I want to go back and do this? Is this too much of a toll on my body and stuff? And yet, that's the feeling the film is throwing your way, and yet that doesn't really seem to materialize anywhere. So was there a brief moment in his career at that point where he thought about just hanging it up and being an ambassador for the sport and, less so an active participant? I don't know. It didn't really get into that. I also felt, too, that there were a couple spots with the relationship that also, one thing I really liked is that it did show that, sometimes, as we see in a lot of these movies about fighters in the ring and stuff, sometimes the relationship helps that person, be themselves, and it helps them be a better person and all that. Some of Jake LaMotta's best moments, for example, in Raging Bull, are when he's with I can't remember the character's name. Sorry, with his wife the majority of the film, Kathy Moriarty. Vicky was her name. I can't remember. I haven't seen that one all the way through in a while. But some of his more down to earth moments, where his most relatable moments in the film, are when he's with his wife and when he's not really an animal 100% of the time. And yet with this movie, we kind of, without giving way too much away, we kind of get the opposite of that. We see that sometimes Mark is at his lowest when he's with the gal that he's with in the relationship, Emily Blunt's character. And I thought that was a very nice kind of spin on it. I appreciated that part of it. I appreciated that it wasn't afraid to show that, some of these guys, they're in their element when they're in the ring and stuff, but when they're outside the ring, sometimes things are actually worse than they are in the ring and stuff like that. I thought that was a really nice spotlight and stuff. So I thought that was, one of the more respectable parts of the film, one of the parts of the film that I think I'm going to remember more than other sequences and stuff. But overall, again, it wasn't a movie I could really, really get into. It's one that I was okay with. I haven't really thought about it nearly as much as something like One Battle After Another, for instance. But Anyway, so I feel like with that, it's like a 7 out of 10. I think there's enough in it that I'm like, I'm glad I saw it, but it's not one of those I'm going to absolutely remember for the rest of time or anything. So Okay, so that's that, and I think I don't think there's anything that's out right now that I haven't seen yet that I totally need to see. The Springsteen movie opens this weekend, so I'll try to get to that here sometime soon. Otherwise, yeah, most everything else is still on the docket to come out a little later. So yeah, or it's released, but it's just not wide enough to where I can see it yet. So yeah, let's get back into the lineup here for who I have for some of these top 8 categories. One Battle After Another is my new frontrunner for Best Picture. Then Sinners, Hamnet, Wicked for Good, Sentimental Value in 5th place, Jay Kelly in 6th, Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere in 7th, Avatar, Fire and Ash I have in 8th place. Even though I have It Was Just an Accident in there for 9th, I feel like that one probably should go up a little higher on my list right now. And No Other Choice is my 10th place spot. The one I'm really considering dropping it, probably the weakest link in these probably is still Avatar. I think something like Frankenstein, I think, has a real shot at getting in, especially, again, if it repeats the performance of Guillermo del Toro's last film, Nightmare Alley, where it gets the tech categories and then surprises us in Best Picture. I can totally see Frankenstein walking that, especially if we turn out, if something like Jay Kelly actually does end up being a bit of a letdown for Netflix. We'll see. There's still some time to go there. But it feels like a film that, yeah, the critic reviews were still pretty good on it, but it doesn't feel like a film that's really resonated. It feels like a film that's kind of already halfway forgotten, which is too bad, because it's one seeing the trailer and stuff, I'm like, yeah, this looks like it'll be really good. And yeah, the performances and stuff, it sounded like everyone was terrific in it. And here we are, not even a full month removed from a lot of the screenings of the film, or maybe a little bit more than a month removed, and I don't sense a lot of buzz around it right now. So to win Best Picture, especially, yeah, I think that's out of the cards. But at this rate, unless it really makes a big turnaround here, it has a shot of falling out of quite a few of my predictions. But we'll see. It's still early with that one, so we've got some time. Otherwise, some potential other movies. Marty Supreme, I'm going to hold off on a little bit for now. I think it's still a film that can definitely get one of those 10 spots. Particularly if the screenplay gets in, Chalamet gets in, if it can do okay in the tech categories, then yeah, I think it can definitely get one of the 10 spots. Begonia, I'm close on this one too. I'm not really sensing, that a lot of love with this one either. I'm fascinated to see the movie, and I think I'll enjoy the movie and everything, but I don't know. I'm not getting a lot of like great buzz off it as far as like something that's going to like be a slam dunk for Best Picture. But I think it can totally make one of the 10 spots though. House of Dynamite, I think that one will do better at the Globes personally than I think it will at the Oscars. But we'll see. We'll see about that one. And then other than that, I think that's kind of about it for Best Picture. So we've already whittled it down to about roughly 15 films at this point. We'll see if one or two want to try to sneak in later on. In the directing race, I've got Paul Thomas Anderson out front for One Battle After Another, Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value, Ryan Coogler for Sinners, Chloe Zhao for Hamnet, and Jafar Panahi for It Was Just an Accident. Those are my 5. At this rate, I feel really good about that. I'm not really sure where the spoiler is going to come from, other than maybe Park Chan-wook beating out potentially Joachim Trier, or potentially even Ryan Coogler for one of those spots. Chloe Zhao, I feel like I've got her right now in 4th, but I feel like, yeah, she is more of a safer bet maybe than those other 2 right now. But yeah, definitely hang on to Jafar. I know he's probably not going to get nominated a lot of other places through the precursors, but that Palme d'Or winning film, getting in for directing, that's been a trait that's happened for a long time now, almost a full decade, I believe. We've seen that happen, so yeah. So definitely keep him in if you've got him in, or put him in if you haven't. Some other potential directors that could steal a spot. I would say Catherine Bigelow has a shot with a House of Dynamite. If Wicked for Good really overperforms, then John M. Chu can get in, especially with that weird Critics' Choice win for directing last year. Josh Safdie for Marty Supreme, possibly Yorgos Lanthimos for Begonia. Maybe even Del Toro for Frankenstein. I think he's got something of an outside shot to get in. To the acting races, Best Actor, I've got Jeremy Allen White still as my frontrunner for Springsteen, then Timothée Chalamet for Marty Supreme, Michael B. Jordan for Sinners, George Clooney for Jay Kelly, and then Leonardo DiCaprio for One Battle After Another. That's my 5 for now. Anemone was another one, I think, with Daniel Day-Lewis. Everything I've heard from the film is the film's not really all that great. Even if Daniel Day-Lewis is good in it, Yeah, it just felt like the buzz immediately died around that film once the first couple screenings happened. Wagner Mora. This is one I'm not sure where this is coming from. Maybe I'm just really missing it, but The Secret Agent. A lot of people have been talking about this film. It showed at New York Film Festival and all that. I forget. Is this an international film? I believe so. From Portugal. Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't know enough about this, but I'm seeing there's a real surge for this guy to be one of the nominees. I see he's way out ahead of a lot of the other contenders at the Golden Globes. I believe was that in the comedy race? Hold on, where have they got him? That's weird. I think no, it was the drama race. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the drama race. A lot of people had him really high up in that race. Let me see. Oh no, wrong spot. Hold on. Because everything every little bit I've read about it or seen about it says that it's not really like a comedy movie. Let's see. Hold on. They got him on the drama side. Yeah, they've got him on the drama side. Yeah. Anyhow, but yeah. I feel like with this one, I don't know enough about it to where I can confidently predict it or anything, but I see he's like a top 5 now at least on Gold Derby's odds. That's interesting, but I don't know enough about the movie or the performance or anything to definitively say what's going on with that. So anyone in the comments, clue me in. Clue me in, because I'd like to know what the big buzz is on him. Dwayne Johnson for Smashing Machine has gotten some of the best reviews of the film do talk about his performance and stuff. And he is very almost a transformative performance as far as the physical aspect of it, but also just the way he's able to kind of make his voice as gentle as it is and stuff through the film. I think that's a real change for him, and hats off to him that he has that level of performance in him. Otherwise, Jesse Plemons for Begonia possibly is a sneaky one. Some people like Ethan Hawke's chances for Blue Moon. Maybe a few people hanging on to Brendan Fraser for Rental Family. And then, I think there's still a couple people that believe in Daniel Day-Lewis's ability to get nominated. But, yeah. Anyway, so, that's Best Actor. Best Actress, this feels kind of like a more fluid race for me, where I've got, 2 or 3 that I'm like, yep, they're absolutely guaranteed. I think 1 or 2 of those spots, though, are very much up for grabs right now. First one, I would say Renee Renvy is still my early placeholder here, but I think Jessie Buckley is right behind her. Probably when we get a little further down the road, I probably will switch to Jessie Buckley to win. Cynthia Erivo for Wicked for Good is in 3rd. I have put Emma Stone in for Begonia. I think she can get in 4th place. And then Julia Roberts I'm hanging on to for now in 5th place for After the Hunt. But I look at the rest of the field, I'm like, I'm not really sure 100% who to go with here. I know a lot of people like Rose Byrne's chances and stuff, but I'm still very pessimistic about that. And I understand, I'm probably going to use the same arguments for putting in Julia than I am for Rose Byrne. The only difference being, okay, now Julia, for that being, it feels like Julia will be the sole representation of After the Hunt. It's probably not going to get in any other category. If I had Legs, I'd Kick You, very much feels right now at least like it's in the same camp. If it's going to get in for anything, it's Best Actress. The big difference, though, between these two, Julia Roberts is an Oscar winner and a multiple Oscar nominee. Rose Byrne has not really done very much stuff that's very attuned to Oscar voters. I'm not sure if a lot of Oscar voters have seen more than a handful of her films, if that. So I'm not really 100% sure about that. Amanda Seyfried has The Testament of Anne Lee. That got picked up and it'll be released in December, so that's going to qualify and everything. She is a previous nominee for Mank, so possibly she could get a little bump for that, and she could be our 5th place nominee there. Some people put Chase Infinity here. I feel like she's more a supporting role in that film anyways, so I don't think she would crack in. I don't think we're going to go, I don't think the thing's getting 4 or possibly even 5 nominations in the acting races, but otherwise, Jennifer Lawrence for Die My Love was an early one I had picked out as a possible nominee and stuff, but I've dropped her since then, and Yeah, I feel like it's a performance in a film. I'm not sure if all the Oscar voters are going to 100% get behind it. Then again, The Substance last year, I felt the same way, and yet that ended up getting quite a few nominations. So yeah, one of the only other ones I'm really considering here is possibly Sydney Sweeney for Christie. But then again, very similar to The Smashing Machine, I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, the performance is the transformative part, the thing that is more likely to get nominated. The rest of the film, less so. The only thing I would say for Smashing Machine is the makeup. The makeup probably will get in for the top 5 there and probably will be nominated. But and with Christie, I don't necessarily think there's a ton of makeup in the film, not from what I've heard, but yeah. And again, with that one, I just don't know. It's coming out here actually in the next couple weeks. It's not like the word off of TIFF was like it's phenomenal. It's one of the greatest films of the year. There were definitely a handful of people that said that Sweeney gave a really great performance, but other than that, I haven't picked up a great sense that like it's a beloved film across the board. So yeah, so I feel like Arrivo, Buckley, and Renvy feel really safe here. The other 2 spots kind of open. I think Emma Stone is probably more likely of the other ones. And yeah, I would probably say still Julie at this rate, but that one's kind of close, and we've got some other possibilities there. For supporting actor, I've got Stellan Skarsgård still as my early front kind of placeholder for now as the front runner. Then Paul Mescal in second place for Hamnet. Delroy Lindo I've still gotten third for Sinners. And then I do have both Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro in for One Battle After Another. Don't forget, too, even though we haven't seen it, was it 2 years in a row now? I think we've seen the supporting acting races for actress and actress both go, 5 different films. But we had a great stretch there where they like to put multiple nominees from the same film in the same acting category. So we could be back onto that track again here with Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro both. Otherwise, I would say Adam Sandler I had in for a little bit there for Jay Kelly. I've dropped him. Jeremy Strong for Springsteen, I've dropped him. Seems like from the trailers and stuff and the early buzz on the movie, it's like it's more Jeremy Allen White's movie. It's less so Jeremy Strong's movie. Miles Canton, I still say he's got something of a chance. I think he could break in here. What's going to be really important, if he can make it into either SAG or get like that 6th spot at the Golden Globes for supporting actor, he's got to get 1 or 2 things under his belt, I think, before I can possibly call him a spoiler to get in for one of these races. Otherwise, I've heard a couple people like Andrew Scott for Blue Moon, but otherwise, yeah, I feel like that one, yeah, we've kind of talked about everyone there. Supporting actress, this is another one I feel like we don't really have like a 100% solidified field here. Elle Fanning is still my early placeholder here. Ariana Grande for Wicked. Inga is daughter Lilius for Sentimental Value. Wunmi Muska, I still haven't really heard too many people pronounce her name yet. For Sinners, I've got her in 4th place, and then Tiana Taylor I've got in 5th for now. I might bump her up or down, probably up a little bit over time here. Otherwise, Amy Madigan for Weapons, I've heard there's a real buzz about her. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I don't know. I think I've seen 1 or 2 photos of her from the movie. I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of see where it's a performance where it can be a little, once I kind of get why it would be possibly a nominee and stuff. Emily Blunt, I think is going supporting here. She definitely was a supporting role in the film. I wouldn't call her necessarily like a co-lead or anything. I haven't heard anything like definitive as of yet. But I wouldn't be shocked if they did announce, and I just missed it, that she is going supporting only. Both Gwyneth Paltrow and Odessa Azion, or Azion, I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name, but for Marty Supreme, have a little bit of buzz about him. I think more Gwyneth just because of the trailer, but I have not heard that she's like got like a lot of scenes in the movie. It looks more like Odessa would have more scenes in the movie from the trailers and stuff, but yeah. Otherwise, I feel like for a little bit I was thinking maybe about Laura Dern in supporting actress here for Jay Kelly, but yeah, I don't know. Yep, so that's that. For the screenplay categories here, adapted screenplay first. I've got One Battle After Another, then Hamnet, Wake Up Dead Man, Springsteen, and No Other Choice for now. Begonia could break in here, possibly Frankenstein, possibly Wicked. and then maybe The Life of Chuck. And I think we're kind of pushing it at that. And then with original screenplay, again, this one feels like a little bit more competitive. Sentimental Values, my early placeholder here. Then Sinners. I think it's really close. Those are kind of 1 and 2, really close there. Then Jay Kelly. It was only an accident, or sorry, it was just an accident rather. And then Marty Supreme is my 5th place pick there. Secret Agent, again, that could take off in this category. Is This Thing On could get nominated. A House of Dynamite could get nominated. Weapons is an original possibility here as well. Blue Moon could get in. Yeah, I feel like that's probably about it for that one. Yeah. But, yeah, I feel like there's more depth there in this category than there is adapted. But all right, so yeah, that's what I've got for the top 8 categories. And I think this will probably be the last time that we specifically talk about Oscar nomination stuff, that I think we'll restrict it to the top 8 categories. After this, we'll do a few of the tech categories. We'll do, some early bids for like, okay, what films are looking at double-digit nominations? Spoiler alert, it's probably Sinners, it's probably Sentimental Value, it's probably One Battle After Another. Probably those 3 are your big 3 this year as far as like, who's getting the most nominations and stuff. With possibly a film like Hamnet also being a spoiler there for potentially getting up to the double digits, but we'll see. Wicked for Good, I think, is going to be really close, if not breaking in for double digits. So yeah, and we've got the extra category this year with casting now, so that definitely presents the possibility that we are going to get more films get into the double-digit number of nominations and stuff. So, yeah. Okay, so I think that's all I got for today. So we will be back sometime next week. Not sure exactly what day, but we'll get another upload up next week. We'll talk about some early Golden Globes predictions. And, yeah, if anything else breaks in between then for story-wise or whatever, or any Oscar coverage, we will discuss it then. So, yeah, that's all I got.